Hey everyone, so in this demo video, I'm going to show you how you can make your own skill with ServiceNow's Now Assist. And skill is essentially creating some sort of feature within ServiceNow that utilizes AI to do a given task. And the skill we're going to build for this video is a skill that can look at an incident and provide a summary as well as recommended next steps, as well as automatically assign it to the correct support group for your given instance. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. I'm going to search for Now Assist, and I am in a lab instance because Now Assist is not available in personal development instances at the time of recording this video. So I got a lab instance going. And if we go to the home page here, it's just loading. This is where you can go ahead and build your skill. So if we go here, I clicked on home underneath now it says skill kit. You can click on create skill like so. And you can give your skill a name. So for example, in our case, it's going to be summarize instances plus recommendations, assuming I spelled that correctly. And I don't think I can do a plus symbol. And then in the description, you can say what it does more in depth. So this skill analyzes an incident as well as provides recommendations for next steps. Additionally, it will automatically assign, or I'll just say it will automatically recommend the support group to assign it to. There we go. And we're just going to use the default parameters here. So the now generic. And if I do use an AI generated prompt, it's going to automatically generate a prompt for you based on the description that you gave it. So it's just loading. We'll give it a few seconds. And if you notice it doesn't work on the first attempt, you can always just click regenerate. So I'm going to do that right now, like so. And it's just loading. And then once that loads, we're going to go ahead and click on use prompt if we're happy with it. Of course, we are going to make some modifications. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on use prompt. And we're going to go ahead and click on create skill and go to prompt editor to make our modifications. And then once that loads, we can take a quick look at it because we're going to have to make a subflow to actually get the groups within the ServiceNow instance because it's going to need that for context to know what groups are available. So we can see here it says you are an incident analysis expert. Your task is to analyze an incident, provide recommendations for next steps, and automatically recommend a support group to assign it to. That sounds pretty great so far. The incident that needs to be analyzed. So as an input, we're going to add a skill input, and that's going to be the incident. So it's going to be a record on the incident table within ServiceNow. And all of this you can leave as is, or you can just pick a test record right off the bat. So we're just going to click on add skill input. And then we're going to replace this with the incident that needs to be analyzed. So we'll give it the description and the short description of the incident. So what I'm going to do is incident short description and incident description. So it has that for context. And then we're also going to have another one for available support groups. So it knows these support groups to assign it to. And then for the incident short description, we're going to go ahead and click on insert inputs. We're going to go to our incident and then we're going to grab the short description. So I'm going to go ahead and click for that. And then similarly, we're going to do the same thing for the description. So we're going to go ahead and search for description like so. And now for the available support groups, this is where we're going to have to create a subflow to actually get the support groups. So let's go ahead and do that now. If I go to our workflow studio, formerly known as Flow Designer, and we still see it's called Flow Designer within the module tab. So it's just opening it up, and we're also going to go to the groups table for reference. So it should be under users and groups. So I'm just going to go ahead and open that in a new tab. And then within subflow, we're going to go to new subflow. And we're going to name it whatever we'd like. So get group information, for example. And then I'm just going to make sure that it's ran as system user and not the user who initiates the session. And we're going to go ahead and click build subflow. And now these are the available groups. So the groups that I'm going to fetch within the subflow are going to be the ones that are, of course, are active, and the ones that have a description that is not empty, so that we're not feeding empty descriptions into the prompt, just to make sure that we are as accurate as possible when assigning it to the correct support group. So we can see there's 33 here. So within our subflow, we're going to do a lookup records, like so, lookup records, and we want the group table. So the internal name of the group table is sys user group. You can go ahead and search for that here. And then, of course, our filter criteria is where active is true. And the description is not empty. So that's going to be our criteria. If I go ahead and open up a group just to get an idea and make sure there's nothing else that I am missing, that looks pretty good. And now, if I click done, we're going to do a for loop. So for each of the found records, I'm just going to make sure I didn't miss anything here. That should be good. For each of the found records, we're going to go ahead and iterate for all of them, because I'm going to add another criteria. I'm just thinking about it as I make this video. So what we could do is, for example, if this group was part of that criteria and it automatically assigns it to this group, we see that there's no group members. So it's kind of, we don't really want to include groups without any group members, because then no one's going to be notified. No one is part of that group that can handle the incident. So we're also going to add an additional criteria to ensure that there's at least one member in a group. So this is on a different table called sys_user_gr member. And if we go look at that table, I'm just going to go ahead and I may have to open a new tab because I lost my menu. I'm going to go ahead and just copy this. Oh no, it's here. So what we could do, I'm still going to copy this, it'll be easier. And then I'm just going to toggle to this table directly. So I just copied the internal name of the table, .list, which you can do for any table to go directly to it to see the data that is in it. And we see here we have a group, and it also contains the user part of this group. So what we're going to do is within our subflow, I'm going to add an if condition. So if, or actually what I will do first is I'm actually going to do a lookup. So we're going to do a lookup record and like so. And I'm going to look up the records. So we just saw that the table is the sys_user_gr member table. And the criteria is going to be where the group is equal to the same group of that record. So if we go to step 2, which actually contains that group record, let's go ahead and grab the sys ID. So that's the ID because it is a reference to that record on the group table. So that will be the match. So essentially all of the group records it found, for each record, check, okay, does this record match a group on this table? If it does, then we can assume that there is members in the group, because there's only a record on this table if there's at least one user part of that group. So once we do the lookup, we can then actually just do a if the group member record. Actually, I could even do a lookup records again and then just check the count for is greater than 0. That's probably something that's better because I do know that when you just do lookup record over lookup records, lookup record actually just logs an error if it didn't find it. And you can always just click don't fail on error. But just to make the logs a bit healthier within the ServiceNow instance, I'm going to go ahead and do a lookup records as well for this one. So it's just the plural version. And then we're going to do our sys underscore, whoops, I think I messed up the name. Oh, sys user underscore gr member, like so. And this is where we're going to add the criteria. So where the group, and just to be a bit cleaner, I'm just going to grab the sys ID, but you can probably, you don't really need to dot walk to it. Normally you can just do group and then you get the sys ID right out of the way, but I'm just going to go ahead and dot walk to the sys ID. And then we're going to dot walk here as well to the sys ID of that group that it is looking at. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and remove this previous lookup record we did. So now we have lookup records. And we want to make sure that if the count is greater than 0, we know we found at least one member in that group. Then what we could do is we want this to be part of that criteria. So I'm going to make a flow variable. This is going to keep track of all of the group descriptions. And I'll keep track of the name in there as well. So I'm going to call this available groups available groups. And it's just going to be a string. We're going to go ahead and click save. And then we're going to do a set flow variables. And then here is where we're going to set the actual flow variable. And this is where it can get a bit tricky. So what we're going to do is we want to make sure that I'm just thinking about it. So if we get the flow variable, because for example, we look at the first name and description of that group, we add it to this variable, and then we want to add the next one to this variable without losing the previous one. So we're always going to do a return fd underscore data to get all of the available data within the subflow. And we want the flow variable that we created, so we can do dot flow underscore variable. And then we want the available groups. And then I'm going to do plus equals so that it always takes the previous string within that variable and appends it with the next found record. So for that, what we're going to do is, again, fd underscore data to access all the data within the flow, or subflow in this case. And then what we could do is we want to get the record that we're looking at. So that's step 2. The item, so that's the actual record. And now we have access to all of the group fields. So we want the name and we want the sys underscore, sorry, not this. We want the name and the description, my bad. So then what we can do is name, I'm just going to also make it more clear, plus equals group name is that. And then what we can do is I'm going to add a dash just for fun. You can format this any way you want. And then it's going to be group description is going to be, and then we just want the description right here. And you can clean this up. For example, you can make a variable that stores everything up to the item. And that will already make the code a lot cleaner. But for the purposes of this demo, we're just trying to get this done as quickly as possible. So here we go. So now if I click on done, it's going to do that. And then what we could also do is we can make an output variable because we want to output the available groups. Cancel, I'll just put groups, it's fine. And then we will do set output, wrong one. We want set output variables. There we go. Assign subflow outputs. That's the name of it. And we can grab the groups. And it's going to be equal to our flow variable, available groups. So let's give that a quick test to see if that worked. I am doing this a little bit on the spot, so forgive me if any mistakes. But we'll make sure to correct them together so you really get how I go about correcting mistakes and such that I see. So we can see that it successfully iterated through 33 records. If I look at the output, it seemed to have worked. So we got application development, and then we have the actual description on what it does. And we have 33 records, which is what we wanted. And then it's only taking the one that has at least a group member. So for example, if we look at the first iteration, the group that it looked up was this guy right here. That's the ID of the group. And if we go directly to that sys of the group, we can see that it has no group members, so it actually did not add it to the flow variables because it evaluated false. If it had a group member, then it would be part of it. So I'm comfortable with that for the first version. We're going to go ahead and click on publish, and then we will let that load. There we go. So now that we have our subflow, what we can do now is go back to our skill and available support groups. So we can go ahead and do insert inputs, and we're going to insert a subflow. Let me click that again. Oh, I remember. You have to go to Tool Editor, and within Tool Editor, so this is the start, and then this is the end, and then in between we have our prompt. But before we run our prompt, we want to get the available groups. So we're going to add a subflow. So you can add a tool before that step to specify what you want to run. And in our case, it's a subflow. And the name could be whatever. So I'm just going to call this the same as subflow, get group information. And I just selected the subflow as the resource that we just created together. And we're going to click next. We're always going to run this step. If you had a use case where you only want to run a predefined subflow or a script before, you can also configure that there. In our case, we always want to run it, so it's always going to evaluate to true. So we're going to let this load. And now, if I go back to the tool editor, I'm just going to click on this, and we can see that it's going to run this subflow first. And then it's going to run our prompt. And now, what's really great is that we can now access it here. So the output of that subflow, I want it to be where to the right of available support groups. So if I do insert inputs, we now have a section for tools, and within get group information, we have our output that we defined called groups. And now it should be defined. So we should have all the available groups. I'm just going to change the output a little bit. I'm going to make sure the prompt looks good, and then we'll give it a test or actually we could give it a test now, because what I'm thinking is that I'm going to output it as so that's our test incident that we put. I might ask the output to be a JSON, and then we can map. So for example, for the recommended group, I'll put the name of it, and then we can just get the sys and put that for the assignment group of the incident. So we just outputted it together, and we can see the response. The user is unable to connect to the email server, indicating the email service disruption. That was based on the incident. These are the recommendations. And if I look at ground prompt, and the recommended support group is problem analyzers. So I'm going to see if I can change it easily. The output should be a structured JSON format containing the following elements. And we're going to do, so the first element is going to be a brief summary of the incident. So we're just going to summary, which is going to be this. So this should map to a field called summary. And then I'm going to make it so that it seems to map to a field called recommendations, and then the recommended support group. So the recommended support group name to assign the incident to, ensuring proper escalation and resolution. So I'll just put group underscore name. And then just to make this more JSON-like, I'm just going to put the JSON syntax, the nice little curly braces. And let's try running a test now and see what that did. So if I run test, like so, it's just loading. Gonna take a sip of water while it loads. Oh, there we go. So that's pretty great. So summary, the user's able to connect to the email server, recommendations, do all this lovely stuff, and problem analyzers. So that's the group. Let's just make sure the group actually exists before we go further. We want to go back to the group table. So oh, there we go. I already have it open. So let me copy the name of the group, and we see that it does exist. And does it have at least one member? Yes, it does. It has 6. So far, we're making some good progress on the spot, which is really great. And we're going to go ahead and click on save. I'm going to click on finalize prompt because I'm comfortable with this for a first version. I may just rename it to make it more clear. Let's see, we can just call it recommended incident actions. You can probably think of a better name than that. It's pretty ambiguous, but we'll just click on save. And I'm going to click on finalize prompt, finalize prompt. So now the prompt is finalized, and we saw the tool editor briefly. Evaluations is where you can actually do more tests. And so you can play with this if you want to do further tests just to make sure the prompt is all good. In our case, I'm just going to go for the next step because I'm feeling good today during this demo video, and I also don't want it to be too long. So right here, we can see our LLM that we picked. The evaluations that I was a bit lazy, so I skipped it. But I would definitely recommend always doing this, and this is something that I do when working on this. If it's for an actual client, highly recommend. But if we go to the last step, which is deployment settings, I'm going to go ahead and make this into a UI action, and it's going to be on the incident table because we want to recommend actions for an incident. So it's very much related to an incident. So click on create UI action. And then once that is done, you're going to see link to the actual UI action. And that's just loading. So when you click this button, it's going to run what we just did, our subflow, our prompt. It's just loading. So once we get the response of our prompt, we want to actually map it to fields of the incident. And that's why I asked it to output it as like a JSON so it's more clear. So what we're going to do is we see here, this is the code where it tries. I'm just going to make sure to make this a little bit more bigger for everybody. This is the code that it runs to get the response. So this code is automatically generated with our scale, and we're just going to go ahead and modify that slightly. I am not going to, let me see the best way to do this. So we have our scale response here. So I'm just going to do a check if scale response. So just to make sure it's not empty. And what we could do, or actually, you know what, let's do this. Let me not save this. Let's just run it for fun because we see it's going to output the response on the incident. And we also notice the UI action is not active. In order to activate this properly, what you can do is, I'll just zoom out a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and click on save, but we are going to make some changes to that code. I'm going to go ahead and click publish, and we're going to click on the prompt that we just created together. And I'm going to go ahead. So now that's published, but now we still need to activate it. So you're not going to see it on the incident table just yet. So we're going to go to our Now Assist admin overview. And if you click on the tab, or I'll just let it load for a second just to make sure I click on the right tab my first try. So it's just loading. And I'll click on get started. So I'm just gonna make sure if we take a quick look, I believe it's under features where you can activate the skill. And if I go back to our prompt that I did close it by accident, but you get to define a category when you create it. And in our case, we had it under other, so it should be other. And if I go to available, so these are available skills that you can turn on and activate. So ours is called Summarize Incident and Recommendations. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Activate Skill, like so. And then you can just make sure that this is toggled on. Click on Save and Continue and activate. And now it's going to appear within our incident table. So let's have a go with this. So if I go to workspaces, we'll do it in our service operations workspace. And just to get a nice, cool UI that IT normally uses, So if we go to any incident, I want to see if I can just get one that will pop up. Any random one would be great. And oh, here, perfect. We have incidents. We can look at all of them. So click on any one. I'm going to click on this guy right here. And it's just loading. Oh, there we go. And we're almost there. Okay, so we see our custom skill that we created, summarize incident and recommendations. And I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And right before I do, we can see it says order stuck in low status. It has a pretty detailed description, which is nice. And I'm just going to click on summarize incident recommendations. But a lot of times, sometimes you won't see like a detailed description like this because people's main goal is just to make sure, it's submitted, action can be taken for it. But a lot of times people don't know what the problem is, so it's hard for them to give a good description right off the bat. But that's what our AI model is here for. So we can see that it did output the JSON, and it's within model output is the name that contains our data. So now that we did this test and we know it's model output that contains the data, I believe it's always going to be model underscore output for the response. That's just how it is out of the box. And we can see here that our scale changed to active. So now that we're on our scale, I'm going to make some changes. And I do believe when we make changes, we have to reactivate it again. So what we could do, now let's start running our beautiful code. So if scale response, meaning we actually do have a non-null, non-null value, um, that means we should be able to access model output. And I'm going to make sure that it's parsed to a JSON. So scale response and then model underscore output like so. And then we're going to do var outputs. We need to also parse the model output so that it is a JSON. So we're going to do that. And then we have so we can do var summary is equal to model output dot summary var recommendations. Oh, perfect. It knows. Var group name is equal to model output dot group. I think I had it with an underscore. If I go back here, yeah, I did. And we have summary, and then I'm just going to make sure I spelled recommendations perfect, correctly. So now we should be able to isolate our specific values that we need. And then the next step that we can do is we can actually get the sysid of the group because on the assignment group field within an incident, it is a reference. So if I go to details, we need to set it to a sysid, not the name of the actual group. So we can see here assignment group is that. And to do this, we need to query. So we're going to make a new glide record and we'll query the group table that contains all the groups within ServiceNow. And then we're going to add our criteria. So we want the one that has a matching name like that. And then we'll do a query like that. And you can probably optimize this further. Like maybe you can get the prompt to just output the sysid directly. In this case, I'm just going to fetch it by the name because I see it less risk in this case because it's automated in the sense no one's going to change the name. Like, so for example, if you do a lookup by name, it's not maybe always the best case scenario because someone can change the name and then all of a sudden the group doesn't exist. But because this is such an automated step where it gets all the groups and right away it passes it into the prompt, then it does the lookup by the name. Because it's such a quick sequential process, I'm comfortable just doing the lookup by the name. But if you want to be more secure, you could do a lookup by the sysid itself and just change the prompt and the subflow slightly. So we're going to set the sysid to a group ID field. And I'm just going to say, we'll set it to null to begin with. And then if group gr has a next element, this means that it found a record. We'll set the ID equal to the sysid of the found record. And what we'll also do is, so if group ID is not null, meaning it was successfully able to set the the sysid correctly, and meaning that there is in fact a recommended group, we're just going to go ahead and clear the assign to, because it's possible that the incident's already assigned to somebody, and if it tries to update the assignment group and where the assigned to is not in that group, it could cause an error. So I'm just going to clear it, and then we're going to go ahead and do assignment group equal to the group ID to automatically set it. And what I'll also do while I'm here is we're just going to log everything in the work notes instead. So the work notes field out of the box is HTML. And within ServiceNow, if you put code like this, automatically you can start using HTML tags and it will automatically format it how you want. So we're just going to encapsulate it within our close tags. And what we could do is you can format this however you want. If you're an expert at HTML, I'll just write some pretty quick HTML for the purposes of this demo. So auto-filled by our, I don't know, AI assistant. And then we can add a break so it goes to the next line. Actually, I believe you only need one, but we'll add 2 lines underneath it. And then what we can do is, oh, that's so sweet. Okay, so it does try to do it for me automatically. But because I like the long way, let me just quickly do this myself. Plus, and what we could do is, I'm just gonna drink some water as I think about this. That's some good water. All right, so I'm just gonna log it very basically. I'm not gonna try to be too fancy, just use summary. But just know you can make this look super nice. So let's do a quote. There we go, pardon me. All right, so summary like that. And now I can do another line like that. And we can then do another plus, and then we can do a potential next steps like that. And then plus for a solution, and then plus what we'll do is I'm just gonna add another, okay, so I have the break tag there. We'll add another break tag. And I believe the recommend next steps were also in a number format, so you can really make this look nice with in like a list view with HTML. But do forgive your or forgive me because your eyes are probably going to see this not formatted too well since I am trying to just do this as quick as possible. But plus assignment group like that, and then we want the group name that we set. Yeah. Well, sorry, that was exported from the prompt. So now that we have that, and I have to add a plus symbol there, just gonna go ahead and we'll format the code. So we want to make sure that we update it. So current dot update, so the record's actually updated. And then what we can do is I'm just gonna replace it from logging in message and just say that the AI assistant updated the record with, I'll just say updated the work notes with a summary and recommended next steps, as well as automatically assigned it to a support group. And we'll see if I didn't make any typos within my code, but you can make this a lot better. Some sort of error handling if for whatever reason the prompt doesn't output a group, but that will come when you do more testing. This is like a first draft. So now that we have that written, we can go ahead and click on summarize incident recommendations. And assuming I didn't make a mistake, we see the assignment group is empty right now. So right now it is just going through the process, and I did make a mistake. So it's because I think I forgot to activate it. Or if I do a refresh, okay, so it is active, but it says something went wrong. If we go to the system logs, like so, go to all, and so it says solution is not defined. So I had a typo. And I'm sure you guys were screaming at me when you saw me write this. So I probably accidentally put solution. Oh yes, it's not solution. It is recommendations. There we go. But at least it shows you, like, when you make errors, you can always just go to your system logs in ServiceNow and try to figure it out. So that was a really clear error message on like what the problem was. And now if I go ahead and click on summarize incident and recommendations, assuming I don't have to reactivate it again, we'll see if it just works. So then I take back what I said about having to go back and reactivate it. Yeah, it just works. So summary is undefined, so it's not perfect. The assignment group didn't work. And the assignment group is undefined. So I clearly made some sort of mistake. And if I go back to the summary here, I'm setting the vars to .summary. And I believe that was the convention I put. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and log this again, what I had before. So we're just going to log JSON.stringify to get a string version of our output. And we're going to go ahead and log the response. So it's going to be skill response. So if we copy that there, I do another save, and then I go back here. Let's see if we can figure out together why it's undefined. So summarize, and we can see that we do have a summary within the output, and we do have a group name. So if I control F the summary, we have model.output .summary. It is working with the recommendations, might I say. So let me think about this summary. And then it is set to a value, but it is empty. I'm just gonna go ahead and debug this real quick. GS.log summary is, we're gonna debug it at the same time. I'm gonna go speed mode. Group name, we have dot model underscore output. Unless it's not in the, no, it should be. That's summary and group name. We have a group name, and then we're setting this. I just want to make sure that these variables are actually being set, because I guess not if they're undefined, but group name is plus group name. And it should, so group ID is null. If group ID, we're setting, making sure the name is equal to the same group name. And then we do a query, and then if the group gr.next has a record, we have group ID equal to group group gr.sysid. Group ID assigned to, and let me just try that again and see what happens. We will get there, everybody, together. We will get there. So it's just loading. And now if I go back to the system logs, so it is undefined for some reason. JSON.parse model output from here. So if I do model underscore output, and we can do a model underscore output, outputs JSON.parse. Let me try to do, oh my goodness, you guys probably saw this. My mistake. Yeah, whoops. Yeah, I'm sure you guys noticed it right away. I find when you make a demo video and you're trying to explain code at the same time, you can always make little mistakes like that. So I just had the, I was defining model output directly, but not my outputs where I just parse the model underscore output. So that really shows the importance of parsing the model output once you extract it from the JSON. So now that our model output is a proper JSON and we're referring it directly from outputs, we should get something that works. And we do. So we see here that it is automatically assigned to incident management. And we can see here our work notes did get populated. I recommend formatting these a lot cleaner because it's not really readable, which you could do with HTML. And so we have our summary, order stuck in load status, potential next steps as well. And then we have our group, assignment group. Although I do find that this is really just this, the same as the short description. So I was hoping for maybe a more detailed summary. but those are always things you can play with the prompt as well. I'm going to try another incident for fun. So if I search the incident table, and then we can go back to the old view of ServiceNow just for these test cases, or the original backend view. So unable to post content on a wiki page. We can click our button here as well. I'm not able to edit a wiki page, and it's just loading. There we go. We can remove my well, our code that we added back, the stringify the JSON. We don't need that anymore. And we can see the summary. Okay, so it was just the AI model. So this is much better. So the user is unable to edit a wiki page, indicating an issue with the wiki applications or permissions, which is pretty accurate. And then some next step is to verify the user has the necessary permissions to edit the wiki page. If not, to grant the permissions. Check if there are any blah, 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 etc. So it is outputting potential next steps related to the incident. So it does make sense. And then it's recommending the assignment group application developer. So we do have something that works. I recommend taking this a step further, of course, if you can continue prompt engineering specific to your organization or your use cases. This is just a starting point, so there's so much you can do. Maybe you can auto-populate the resolution notes within, or resolution information within the incident. But do keep in mind, I do believe that there is actually an out-of-the-box analysis skill that can already do this for you. I don't know if it can automatically assign it to the correct support group. That's kind of a bonus, but I do know that there is something out of the box that summarizes incidents for you. So this skill may not be necessary. Always look out of the box what it can do first. I wanted to make a custom skill just to really show you the process on how you can make a custom skill to give you an idea. And it's always good practice as well. And you got some practice of subflows too. So that pretty much concludes this demo video. And you kind of saw me struggle a little bit, which is I think is really great when you see a developer like how they kind of solve bugs or how they work around that and such. Because I did do this on the spot, so I didn't have like everything like right in front of me, but I wanted to make sure to really bring you guys along that process and challenge myself as well, and to make sure I can actually do this without, having to look online or and such. So it's a good challenge for me too. If you have any questions, you can always leave a comment, ask away, and I will get back to you with any questions that you have. Thanks everyone, and have a good rest of the day. Take it easy. Bye bye.